Secretary James Kenney, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So this weekend, water customers in Clovis received a letter. Can you describe for the audience what that letter said and kind of what it means?
Sure. The letter that EPCOR, who's the water provider, indicated that they had found some number of their wells, I believe it's less than 10%, had elevated levels of PFAS, that's the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which we should probably just call PFAS for ease of reference. But those chemicals were found in some of their drinking water wells. And that's what the letter explains to residents, and that it's below EPA health advisory levels. The significance of that letter for the people of Clovis, for the state of New Mexico, is that it's the first time we're seeing those chemicals that were in the groundwater now in the drinking water supply.
So we know about the contamination from Cannon Air Force Base. That's been an issue for almost 2 years now, or longer than that, I guess. Yes. Is that where this PFAS is coming from? What do we know at this point?
That's a great question, and since I've been in this position, we've always moved from a decision point or speaking from a place of science. And what we know now is some facts, and the facts are that Cannon has used those aqueous firefighting foams. Those have migrated into the groundwater. Now we're seeing those PFAS chemicals that are in those aqueous firefighting foams. We're seeing those in the drinking water. So while we haven't done a forensic analysis to see if it's the same chemical, the likelihood, in my opinion, is that it's moving in that direction. The plume is moving in that direction. The groundwater is moving in that direction, and that might be what we're seeing.
Can we talk a little bit about what PFAS are and where they come from, what they've been linked to, what some of the concerns about their presence?
Yeah, so PFAS chemicals they're fluorinated chemicals, and while that may not matter all that much, I'm saying that because it's a really strong chemical bond. That's why I'm saying that. But those chemicals are man-made. They're synthetic chemicals, not found in nature normally, and they are used in many applications. So at the Air Force Base, and even airports, they're used to put out fires that may come through training or through accidents. But you might find them in carpet fibers. You might find them on your technical clothing and ski wax. So they might be already in people's cookware and things like that. They tend to be more locked down in those applications. It's when they're free to move in the environment, that's when we're concerned with them. So when they're spilled or released or placed into the environment, that's when they can cause a little bit more problems. They build up in your body. They're known as forever chemicals because they don't decompose or metabolize out of your body very quickly. And they've been linked to all sorts of things, from high blood pressure and high cholesterol to pregnancy complications to testicular cancer in men and other types of cancers. So they're not well studied, but there's enough studies out there to show that they're not good to have in your drinking water.
Can you talk a little bit more about this idea of them as a forever chemical? We also hear a lot emerging contaminant, and also that they bioaccumulate. Can you help me understand what that means?
Sure. When you drink water contaminated with PFAS, you ingest it and it stays in your body. It doesn't metabolize out of your body, meaning through the sort of the cadence of your own biorhythms, you excrete some chemicals. This one tends to accumulate in your bloodstream.
The federal government, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, has set this 70 parts per trillion lifetime health advisory. Can you describe for us what the difference between a lifetime health advisory is and like a regulatory limit, and how that affects state agencies like the Environment Department?
That's a great question. So I'll start with the regulatory side of it, what we're most accustomed to in the regulatory agency like the New Mexico Environment Department and the public water systems that deliver water to so many in our state. We're used to a regulatory landscape that sets out, based on science, a maximum contaminant level that if water has that contaminant in it at the maximum level or less, it's believed to be protective of human health. And those are set through regulatory processes with public comment and review at the federal level, and then adopted by states like ours to then impose those requirements on the public water systems that serve our communities every day. On the flip side of that, where we have emerging contaminants that have not yet had that regulatory process play out, we don't have a maximum level that is regulated for these systems. So as we look at the facts and the situation in Clovis, and we're working as closely as possible with EPCOR, who's serving those customers, we aren't approaching it from a regulator role right now, because these are contaminants in the water that are not subject to our regulatory program. So we're working outside of that realm and trying to make sure that we're doing everything that we can with the science that we know and the resources available to us to address it.
So it seems to me like the state is kind of in this situation where there was contamination from the Air Force activities at these two bases, and the state tried to find a way to compel the Air Force to clean up these contaminants. And in response, the Air Force basically filed a lawsuit against the state, kind of challenging the state's authority to be able to do that. And now there's contaminants in a drinking water system and there's no regulatory threshold for these contaminants. So as a regulatory agency, how are you able to best protect public health and the environment kind of with these restrictions?
It's a great question. And in short, we're using all the tools that we have in our toolbox. You mentioned that we've been trying to have the Department of Defense be held accountable. That is an ongoing effort. We are continuing to push for that and continuing to try and move through litigation and other means to make sure that the Department of Defense is doing what they need to be doing in our communities in New Mexico, near and on these Air Force bases, to address this problem. So that's ongoing. We're using our legal tools. We're using regulatory program tools that are outside of the drinking water program. And then beyond that, we're using our resources through partnerships with other states, other experts who are also trying to tackle this issue. This is not unique to New Mexico. We have our own issues kind of going on here, but we are actively working to see how is the science evolving, how are other states working to tackle this, keeping very close tabs on how the federal government is looking at this. So we're using our expertise, we're using our resources in that respect. And we're drawing on resources in the state as well to make sure that we're closely collaborating with other state agencies who are involved and at the table with us and on the front lines trying to address this, including the Department of Health, the Department of Agriculture. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're thinking creatively, we're being innovative, and we're not just limiting ourselves to the regulatory tools that we have, which are so critically important. But again, for these emerging contaminants, it can't end there.
I feel like we're constantly inundated with learning about different chemicals and things that are bad for us or happening around us that we should be worried about. What would you like people to understand kind of the balance between, hey, we've really got to pay attention to these things, and knowing that your water is safe and this isn't something you should panic about?
Yeah, I think I would like people to understand that this administration, this department, along with my sister departments, whether it's Ag or Department of Health, this is something we talk about on a daily basis. And then it's not just something we talk about, it's something we're taking action on. We've moved with our litigation. We've worked with those particular stakeholders who are affected, so city, county, ag industry. We've tried to work with the Department of Defense. So we're doing everything that we can to leverage a better outcome. In the short term, we're going to continue to do that. I anticipate that I'll be in Clovis as soon as our legislative session ends to have these kinds of conversations in the community. After that, we're going to continue our long-term goal of trying to make sure that we get remediation. We get, first we get the plume delineated, meaning we map it. And then secondly, we get remediation happening. And then third, if, there's a lot of infrastructure going into eastern New Mexico for water purposes, and we need to contemplate what's the long-term goal. How do we take the investments we're making in eastern New Mexico and turn that into a viable solution for long-term high-quality drinking water?
And if people do have concerns, if they receive a letter in Clovis or they're worried about PFAS in their drinking water, who should they contact or what should they be doing?
I think first and foremost, if people have concerns about their drinking water, they should definitely reach out to EPCOR. EPCOR has been helpful in disclosing information, in testing the water. Remember, there's no law requiring the testing for PFAS, and EPCOR has been doing that. Beyond that, the state itself, they should reach out to our Department of Health or the Environment Department for additional information. I think you'll see more from us on water conservation efforts, how to make sure that if you have doubts, who you could go to in terms of an independent test. The legislature here in New Mexico, along with the executive side of government, the cabinet agencies, are working to put money into a bill that we could go out and make sure that we're testing both public water, private water. So there's going to be a lot more focus on Clovis, ensuring that people are first feeling confident about their water, and then second, helping them get educated on what else they could be doing.
We'll have much more on the impacts of PFAS contamination in and around Holloman and Cannon Air Force bases in the coming weeks and months. We're partnering with the team at Frontline to get you answers on just how bad that contamination is and what's being done about it. Back